All right. Okay. Just finished Powers of X10, number 5. Man, 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 man. Oh boy. Um, uh, if you're not reading this yet, you have missed out. You are missing out. You need to get on this soon. There's some crazy stuff in there. Some hints, some plots, some. I mean, we're still don't know what's going to happen at the end, but hey, let's dive in. Back to Long Box Diving, where we explore comics and story arcs pulled from the Long Box. Now, Powers of 10, Powers of X, whatever it's called, it was good. It was really good. Now, this wasn't really an action issue. Honestly, there was a lot of talking, a lot of dialogue, and it filled in a lot of plots with the extra information that we needed. Now, and I don't mind this because it definitely it moved the story along. It made sense. It helped the character development, stuff of that sort. So it was good. And then it added some nuggets, and then it spun 10 to the power of 3 on its head. So we start off with Professor X talking to Forge, and he wants to use Cerebro, and he wants to actually have Forge modify it to do the mutant essence backup stuff that we talked about in the last issue. And he wants Forge to do this. See, Hank McCoy had actually is the one that tweaked it. Now, Professor X came up with the original design. Hank McCoy did the next 3 iterations to actually modify it, make it expand and more sensitive and further distance, things of that sort. But it's gotten to the point that Hank's like, I can't do the backup thing. There's just way too many mutant minds. There's just no way it can be done. So, but that's not Hank's mutant power. It is Forge's mutant power. So Professor X talks to Forge and says, hey, I need this to get done. Now, look at this face. That looks like an evil mastermind's face. That looks like an evil genius's face. It just does to me. Now, it may not be a popular opinion right now, but the X-Men have kind of been sliding toward the dark side for the last couple issues. Attacking first. The whole society thing is very, very exclusionatory, very ethno-state, just us, not you. And that's not really what the X-Men were always wanted to be. They wanted to be included into humanity, and that's pointed out later by Namor. But, I trust Hickman to get us to the point where we're going. And in fact, it says in the beginning of the book that, like Professor X's quote, says that, what they think we're doing is not really what we're doing. So there's some hints there, and I'm hoping everything turns out good. But just look at that face. X-Men is sliding to the dark side, and that face looks like a young Emperor Palpatine. My opinion, but it does. So Forge says, hey, I think you're limited by 2 things. There's 2 things that are really holding this up. One is the volume of minds. You need to back up every mind. You need to do delta backups every mind. And then as things change on a yearly basis, you need to back up the new changes over the course of the year and have a new base point for the same thing in IT. So new base point for where the backups actually extend off of. Then you have the ability, you need to store all that. So you have a volume coming in, and then you need to be able to store the volume of data that you're going to have in a database of some sort that actually links Essence with Mutant, etc. And then you're going to have power. It's going to take an ungodly amount of power. Now, Professor X says, hey, I want 5 redundant backups. Now, there's that number again. We have the 5 mutant heroes of Krakoa. We have the 5 original mutants. We have these 5. So 5 come back up again here. And then Professor X says, hey, don't worry about the stuff you need. I have power and I have memory. He has Shi'ar connections, and he has an antimatter generator. He has Shi'ar crystal memory stuff. We're good. So we then get this infographic on Cerebro. And we learned quite a few things about Cerebro in this. One, it's now powered by a Krakoan no place. Now, I don't necessarily know what a no place is. I think maybe I missed it. If somebody knows, let me know. Then we talk about Shi'ar. Memory is going to be used by the Shi'ar logic diamonds for the memory storage. We also learned that Sinister's DNA repository has now been added to that storage. We learned that Forge now can build biological machines. That's interesting to me because I don't know where they're going to go with that. Forge has always been the technological stuff, and now he can actually, and he's adapting to biomachines, and actually he's creating some crazy stuff that says biomachines. That can be interesting. We learned that there's a delta backup of the mutant essences once every week that takes about 3 hours. And then we have a full essence backup that runs once a year, and it takes about 3 days to complete. That's with the current level of mutant population. I think as that increases, that thing's going to get greater, like we talked about. He can only imprint less than 6,000 minds without more telepaths being involved. Interesting, to me, interesting, because it's very data-driven, and I like that. So another note they put in here is about the different, putting a mind into a different husk. And that could cause problems. But there's an additional note here. It says, if somebody's primary or secondary ability has the ability to overcome the potential conflict of putting a mind on top of another mind, that'll be fine. Maybe fine. I'm not sure where he's headed with this, because this is 2 books in a row they've mentioned that a little bit of information here, and now they've added on to it that it's possible to lay mine on top of mine as long as they have a mutant ability. And knowing where we're going with the chimeras, what are you doing, Hickman? What's here? What's coming? All right, so then we find out that a telepath can actually revert themselves from an earlier backup. And it says Professor X has done this twice. Why? Why has he done that? Why has he taken an older backup of his brain and converted himself back to it? That to me is like he's trying to forget something that he's done. Something that's... So what? What has he done that he needs to revert himself to an earlier backup so he can't remember it? So there's something coming. And they're just kind of hinting at these little notes here and there. And then there's 5 essence backups across here. At the 5 redundant backups, they have that. The thing I noticed is all of them are on Earth. None of them are on Mars. I thought they had a base on Mars or something like that, but none of them seem to be off-planet, off-site backup. So if 5 redundant backups, but they're not off-site, they're all in the same region, which is really, really bad. You need to look up multi-regions redundant backups. So we then see Miss Frost in the Louvre in X1. So we're in X1. Miss Frost is in the Louvre. She's looking at a statue. She tells everybody to get out. Everybody just kind of ups and leaves. Of course, telepath. Can you do that? So Professor X and Magneto show up for a conversation. And we find out that Professor X has been behind the Hellfire Foundation, Hellfire Corporation. He's the money behind them. And he's like, what do you think? She goes, well, you haven't been that subtle. I know you were behind it. He goes, well, then let me tell you about the plan behind the plan. The plan is to have a mutant nation, and that just makes her livid. All right. So this caused questions in my head. In her mind, it seemed like she was saying, because she pointed at Magneto, she said, this is a bad idea, and you of all people should know it. Well, I'm thinking she's referring to Genosha, right? They put all the mutants on one island, and millions of mutants died. If Magneto has been with Professor X since the beginning in this timeline of Mora's life, then did Genosha actually happen? Or did they let it happen and played their roles so everything seems to be basically the same up to this point, so that she thinks that he still put all the mutants on Genosha and then it got bombed and then everybody died, or the Sentinels, and then all these mutants died. But Xavier seemed to be talking to Magneto from the beginning, so did he let that happen, or to keep the timeline as current to what Mora remembers as pot? I don't know. Or did they start later and Magneto and Professor X hooked up sometime after Genosha? I'm not sure. But they keep referring to Genosha actually happening. So there's the question in my head. When did Professor and Magneto actually get together and start this plan? Was it after Genosha, or was it way back with X0? Which would be, did that happen then? I don't know. So maybe somebody else has figured that out. Let me know. But Magneto explains mutants will be coming to Krakoa, and within years there'll be millions. And she was just like, why? What will be different this time? And then he pulls out the Krakoa flower in that little Pokeball, right? It looks like a Poke flower. Then they go to Krakoa, and she's standing there, and she's overlooking this gorgeous view, beautiful, but it's also very futuristic. It's got the buildings out, up in the distance, and it looks very, very beautiful. And she's looking at all this mutant architecture and the mutant society that they've created on this island. And she's like, you know what? Once more for the children. Wow. That was cool to me because that is like very her character. She, when she was with the Hellions, and then again when she was doing Generation X, Miss Frost has been very concerned about the children mutants and about mutant children. So that was fantastic for me. Very well done, Hickman, on that, and the character, getting that character like that. So the plan is to have the Hellfire Club. Now, the Professor X menu is like, hey, we need the Hellfire Club. We need you to be the corporate face of the mutant drug out to the nations. And they do a little haggling, right? And he's like, 20 years. And he's like, Magneto's like, yeah, we were discussing 50 years. And she, just that was funny to me. And to be the sole source of the bargaining and actually sending out the drug, because they don't want humans to figure out how the drug is made or to handle the drug in any way, to be interfering with the mutant nation and getting this out to the human nations according to the agreements that they've made. But they offer her, they say, hey, we're getting ready to set up a council of 12 that's going to be the government of Krakoa. And she's like, we're going to go with something different after that? I guess, well, we don't know. We'll work that out. I see what you did there. But they offered her 2 seats on the council, and she's like, why? Now, that's a good question, because if anybody offers you more than they should, there's strings. All right. There's a string here, too. So she's got to bring back Sebastian Shaw. Now, we know Sebastian Shaw is a bad dude. He's a bad guy, been a bad guy. He's the Black King. He's a bad guy. But now they're going to use him as a good guy. Hook him in and use him. All right. But what they're going to use him for is the Black Ops team. And his job is to bring the drugs into and mutants out of those nations that did not agree to declaring Krakoa as a nation, which we saw the map from the last issue. And this is the team that's going to be going in there and doing that. And Hickman, again, I see what you did there. The Marauders, anyone? Have we just seen what the plot of the Marauders are going to be? I think we have. This sounds kind of interesting. Black Ops mutants team that save mutants, kind of like the old X-Force thing. Kind of, that team that's willing to go in there and do it, led by a guy who has no compunction about, doing what has to be done to get the job done. And also a pretty freaking cool superpower, by the way. So she agrees, but she has to have 3 seats. Miss Frost, another character thing of Miss Frost that just fits so well. Then we get the infographic about the council. We see there's 12 seats broken up into 4 sections of 3 seats each, named after the seasons: spring, autumn, summer, fall, etc. We have the 3 seats up top, Magneto and Professor X. These 3 are empty, and then we have the 3 in the bottom, Sebastian Shaw and Miss Frost. And then we have 2, looks like advisory seats with Krakoa and Cypher. Now, some are colored black, some are striped, and I'm not sure if that means filled, like a seat's filled or not filled, or whether it means something else. I see Cypher's is black, but Krakoa's is striped, but it shows his name for Krakoa, so I'm not sure if I got that understanding correctly. Black seat, colored in, filled, striped, not filled. I don't know. Then we flip to X1, and we see Xavier going to all the mutants, inviting them to come to Krakoa. Come to Krakoa. We're going to set up a mutant nation, and we see a lot of the same people that we saw in the last issue. Exodus and his acolytes, and then we see a Mr. Sinister. And honestly, if you look at this panel, it looks like Mr. Sinister has killed all the other Sinisters. I wonder, has Hickman finally fixed the stupid Sinister thing by killing off all the other Sinisters? I hope so. This really filled me with joy to see all the Sinisters. I know that's pretty bad, but it did. It filled me with a lot of joy. There was one Sinister in that panel. The others were dead. Take it as you may. I liked that. I want one Sinister, and I want him sinister. Not dancing Sinister. I want Sinister. A Sinister. All right. So then we get to another panel. We see some other mutants. We see the Omegas. That was cool. Then we see some other, and then we get into where he's in Atlantis, right? Professor X went to Atlantis. He sees Namor, and Namor says, "Hey, I see what you're doing, and you finally have done." Now, Namor is a mutant, so he would qualify for a spot, even though he's also Atlantean, and partially human, he is still a mutant. So he would qualify for a spot on Krakoa. But he says, I realize what you're doing and why you're doing it, because you finally realize that you are not them. You're mutant. Mutant and human are not the same. Now, he's Atlantean versus human, and he's like, I'm not them and I'm not you. But he's like, you finally realize you're not them and that you're superior to them, and they will never love you. I don't know. Maybe. Professor X and the X-Men have always wanted to be included into humanity because they're mutants, yes, but they're still human. At least they were. So we'll see how this goes. Namor's like, hey, I am superior. I'm superior to you, and I'm superior to them. And don't come back here until I think what he basically, don't come back here until you mean it. And I think he means that you believe I'm superior to you. I don't. Namor's kind of cocky. He really is. Always has been. Again, good characters written well. So X3, X cubed, X 1000. The Fallon X finally shows up, and they're there, right? And they finally make a decision. They are going to go ahead and absorb the Elder and all the people, the essences, and it actually makes a construct of the Fallon X, kind of reminiscent of what happened before when the Fallon X showed up in Gen X. And you have the Fallon, and he comes up and grabs the Elder and goes, yes, we agreed to absorb you, but at one condition. And he kisses the forehead of the Elder, and the Elder is destroyed. And then we flip the page, and it looks like to me that they're standing around. It kind of looks like the tree. I'll have to go back and look at that. It kind of, as I'm thinking about this, it kind of looks like the tree on Krakoa. So let me pull that up real quick. Well, all right, look at that. That kind of looks like the tree, right? All right, so maybe we're talking about mutants here, which is what I was thinking. Is they're talking about mutants? It just dawned on me as I was sitting here talking about this. That may actually be the tree, Krakoa tree, the resurrection tree that we've been talking about this whole time, and they are back there with Nimrod talking. Looks like the tree on Krakoa, saying what happened, why did this happen, and what we come to discuss. Nimrod explains they need to feed. The Fallon X are made up of all the things. They're like little machines, like I am, and like Nimrod saying, I'm made up of little nanites. They are made up of those things, but they're actually particles of the universe, and they require sustenance to continue to produce energy that they do. That sustenance comes from the particles of the universe, such as the planet. So we called them here. They're willing to absorb us, but they are going to destroy the Earth in its entirety. Now, that doesn't seem to make this guy happy that Nimrod's talking to, but that's what's going to happen. Then they also discuss black holes. Black holes are, in essence, massive machine brains that actually collapse in on itself because of the particles of density that are within itself became too great that actually collapsed in itself, causing a black hole. This is called a Titan theory, and Titan theories are individual machine brain societies that are collapsed in on itself, becoming black holes. Now, Nimrod said, what if black holes aren't necessarily individual machine brains, but actually a networked machine brains, creating another society? Now, see, here we again, society's brought up again, and again, society's brought up. It's interesting. I don't know where he's going with this society thing, but last issue, we talked about a mutant society, and now we're talking about machine societies based on microorganism, massive machine brains. And so what if a black hole was the network of titans put together? This would be called a stronghold, and then multiple greater than 10 titans together would actually be called a dominion. And so we get another infographic here. It's the same one we got earlier about societies, but this time they've added on from Techniarch, skipping Hive Mind or World Mind, kind of like what the Kree have, down into the Fallon X, which then works for Titans, which then it's a subset of strongholds, which are multiple Titans together, and then we get dominions, which is I believe greater than 10 Titans together. There is so much detail in here that Hickman put in here that it is just mind-blowing on the level of world building that he's doing with the X-Men right now, and the tiebacks and things like this. And I missed the tree too when I was thinking this out. I totally missed it. I had to look it up again. It makes me think more that again, that is the mutants that made it out to that time frame. What's going to happen? Why did he kill the Elder? I don't know. Specifically, that Nimrod said it's a feed. Hickman is doing a fantastic job on this. There's so much detail in these things. so much writing of character that fits the character. He fixed Sinister, I think. I hope so. I hope he fixed Sinister. And the art in it is fantastic. It's very expressive. Not a lot of action here, but very expressive. And the coloring's done very well. Fantastic issue. Recommend. If you're not getting this now, it's almost probably too late, and you may have to get the trade or spend out the nose to buy these things, because it is definitely worth the grab and put in your pull. Definitely recommend. Good job, Hickman. Good job, Silva, Garcia. Good job. All recommend. So I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time here in the Long Box.